Yeah.
You can go over to that side.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Are you gonna try and lift it over, Simba?
This is
Here, I
heavy.
can move.
Move out of your way.
Hey man, this it's fine. This is one
I
of
haven't
their.
worked out in a while.
Gosh, Simba, you're so out of shape.
Play that. My games
It's,
aren't there anymore.
it's so funny how you were literally watching, like looking at this room for like 2 hours earlier this morning.
Well, I was thinking I was gonna jump up and
Yeah.
say, hey, Beyond Freight,
Okay.
and walk
Yeah.
away, and
We
I'll
get
just be
it.
in the background.
We get it, yeah.
Well, we did a lot of Behind the Freight, but welcome to Beyond the Freight. Today, this is going to be our first podcast. We're super excited. We have the Garcia's Diesel and Truck Repair, the boss man, the boss lady, John and KatLynne. And then here on our right, well, my right, your guys' left, is Andrew J. Gomez, Freight Lord, and Freight Lord and our...
Cutting out.
We're not gonna put it. It's not gonna cut out. And our favorite boss, president, and leader here of AJG, and the president of GH Logistics. So,
Cool.
back to you.
Thanks. All right, cool. So, starting off, in general, we're already talking about not losing hair. How do you handle stress?
Ooh,
Yeah, we
man.
don't even need to get in. I mean, obviously,
in the beginning,
bicep curls
I
in the
was-
office. Is that what's going on? That's number one.
In the beginning, it was really tough for me.
Yeah.
Very tough. I think she got majority of the brunt of my stress, for
Facts.
sure. And which is very not good, right?
Yeah.
Because it can cause other things. Because obviously, she helps me run everything
Mm-hmm.
that we do. And when you're kind of at each other's throat, it can be very hard to work through those things.
Yeah.
Especially, majority of it was all me. It was all me causing
Yeah.
the problems.
I did not con him into saying that.
No, that's me just being honest.
Is that a gun?
Yeah.
That's me being honest and real about it.
Yeah.
So I've had to learn to stop and process
That's good.
because a lot of it is I was going off emotions
Mhm.
because I was frustration, and that's not one thing you
Yeah.
can do in this because you can make very bad decisions between who you work with and your
Yeah.
employees, and obviously my wife.
Yeah.
You know, it's just gonna be a lot of bad things.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, we had to make trucking basically emotionless for a good while too, and just trying to process that, especially, trying to utilize like other business philosophers for me was key. But in general, just you're waking up at 2 a.m. Somebody's calling you, something's going on. Eventually, it just it beats you down.
It does.
So
It does.
just trying to figure out what we have to do to stay strong, and not strong, but just almost stoic. Like, hey,
Yes.
like this, I can only control what I can control.
Yeah.
These people are not stupid, and I didn't teach them myself, so they're,
Yes.
so on and so forth. It's just, I understand that from a business standpoint.
You
And-
learn to do little things here and there. Sometimes I'll just be like, give me a breather, guys.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, let me just take a ride or go over here for a little while.
Yeah.
Let me process and then it's usually in that process I come up with a game plan on the issue that
really,
happened. And
That's
that's
good.
what I usually do. And so I was like, all right, think about it. How can we fix this? How do we move forward?
yeah. And then, so overall, Garcia, what is just a brief rundown on just how y'all started a little bit, what y'all are doing today.
So we started with Garcia Hauling and Trucking.
Mhm.
Started with one truck. And
God bless.
Yeah, yeah, and it was honestly, originally never planned on growing to what it is now.
Yeah.
That was never my plan. Well,
He
somewhat.
doesn't think small at all. And
Yeah.
so
Hey, visionary.
Yeah.
I never planned it to, and it's funny when he says that
Yeah.
because knowing who he is, there's just no way that it was going to stay that way. And to tee it up, I was working corporate. I was the VP of talent acquisition, publicly traded companies, and so I had the corporate mindset, right? And so I was 2 months pregnant at the time, and he's like, "I'm going to quit everything, buy a truck, and we're going to do this." And I'm just like, okay, me being the calculated numbers person, the more risk adverse person, I'm like, hang on, back up, wait. And we found a nice balance of when to push and when to pull.
Wow.
I've learned to, accept more risk, and he's learned to kind of pull more risk back.
That's good.
But yeah, there was no doubt in my mind it was ever just going to be one truck and trailer and
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
jump.
And she actually tried to talk me out of it.
Yeah?
In the beginning,
I
she
did.
wanted me to wait. She's like, wait a year or two. And I was like, no,
No,
now's the time.
yeah.
And it was literally the worst time to buy a truck.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
'Cause it was before-
It's always the worst
It was
time to buy a
literally
truck,
before
so-
COVID or around COVID. The truck
yeah.
market was up the roof.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. And I was like, no, I want to do it, And it started with one. The next thing you know, we're up to 2, 3.
Yeah.
And you keep going, right? But I think that's originally what we started was just on the trucking side.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
never. I originally wanted just like, I can work for myself.
Yeah.
Have my own little check here and there.
Yeah, that's true.
But it kind of when we started getting contracts with Costco,
Yeah.
Walmarts and stuff, it's like, okay, I need more trucks.
Yeah.
Because at that point, I was just hiring outside owner operators
Mm-hmm.
to help me run it.
There's only one way for a trucking company to ever grow. It's like just buy more trucks. That's it. So
Yes.
it's either buy more trucks, and all of a sudden you have. I always say there's 4 problems in general. It's if it's not a truck problem, if it's a driver problem. If it's not a driver problem, it's a work problem.
Yes.
And if it's not a work problem, then it's the weather or
Yes.
something. And
Correct.
if it's not any one of those, then it's probably all of them.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right.
So yeah, I totally understand that. And how many trucks are y'all up to now?
We run about 12 of us.
Wow.
Probably about 12 of them.
That's awesome, man.
hmm And then we do a lot of still owner ops just to keep
Yeah.
up with the
Oh,
work.
of course.
Just the outside owner ops.
Yeah.
But those can be a hassle of its own.
Yeah. See, that's
So
why.
minimal.
Yeah, that's why I almost hired literally a bruiser in general just to be around me, because the last time I had hired I usually don't use owner ops, and I learned the hard way, because whenever I had a highway contract
Yep.
laying those concrete pillars,
Yep.
man, just one guy was, I paid him for half a day, they got cut off half a day through. He's like, you're supposed to pay me a full day, and then I was like, let me know. You got to leave the premises. He's like, I can knock you out and then leave the premises. So on. It's like, man, okay. At this point, I was like, I'd rather, just focus on if they work for me, I know that there's a current standard there. And
Yes, correct.
I think it just takes a different type of leadership that you have to just have it.
Oh, no, for sure. You really do.
To have like that thick skin and
And
stuff.
I tell people it's a different when you're trying to merge trucking and like some kind of corporate aspect of it.
Yeah.
Because they feel bigger standards of bigger companies, right? Because they obviously want customer service. There's a different standard there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think people don't really see the trucking, how rough it can be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How
man.
some of these guys can be. It's just they
It's
just
bad.
Don't get it. I'm
It's
like,
bad.
How have you made it this far?
Yeah.
It's
It's crazy because one thing that we're gonna see less and less, and I already know for sure, is there's more access to contracts and to like shippers directly than there ever has been.
Correct.
So at this point, what I'm seeing is guys who have just gotten by because they were first
Yep.
are not they aren't getting by anymore.
No.
Kings are being unseated everywhere. Why? Because every single shipper is looking and analyzing all their logistics and saying, you guys are charging me $4 a mile, but it's because y'all take me to the rodeo every 3 months or every
Correct.
year that I give you guys this freight. Now that's not enough anymore. Y'all
Yeah.
are kind of hassling me. So at this point, everybody's getting more and more aware because of where technology is at. Then it just goes to, hey, who's going to be there when it matters?
Correct.
There's definitely a price point for
There is.
everyone,
There
but
is.
I think there's also like a caring and a service standpoint
There is.
that's gonna start winning over everybody, and that's what we do. I feel like that's what y'all have done then, and where y'all are at, because I think with trucking, just reputation means everything.
It
And I
really
think,
does. And she embedded that in me
Yeah.
very strongly. From
Aw,
from the first contract we did in Louisiana for
Yeah.
Costco, it was in New Orleans, and she embedded that in me.
Ooh, we can.
So originally,
Story.
actually, if we back up a little bit, before I bought my first truck, so I ran a rock yard.
Yeah.
Pretty much ran their whole business for them. And that's why I was like, and they didn't want to pay me on a commission on one
Yeah.
of the Tesla jobs I got
Yeah.
the contract. So I was just like, well, if you're not paying me a commission, I don't need to be here.
Yeah.
So
was
I,
most of us pay.
yeah,
They were
it-
running out of funds.
Yeah.
yeah,
So, like,
and
yeah,
they
no,
love
we're
taking
commissions,
vacations.
guys.
Yeah.
They were pretty much absent owners, but yet they didn't want to be. a part
Yeah,
of it,
that's
I guess you could
unfortunate.
say. So a lot of it was, I called my buddy. His name's Josh, and I said, hey, let me you drive one of your trucks. I'll bring in the contracts. I'll bring in more work. And I said, give me a month, and I said, but I want this percentage because I know what you're making on the overall, and I'll have my own truck, and I just need it for a month.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay.
There you go.
And literally, so within that first month, I bought my first truck, and he was helping me for a while, but we obviously moved, and so I still stay in contact with
That's
him.
awesome.
This
Yeah.
truck had
Oh.
almost no floor.
It was, no, it really,
Hey.
yeah.
It was humble
rushed.
beginning.
That's how you do
Had
it.
no AC,
That's how you do
had
it.
no heat.
Yeah.
You had
Like-
to carry on coolant with you everywhere.
Yes, I was filling up.
It was
Like it was like
beaut.
this truck was work to keep running every day.
Yeah.
And I
That's
was
hustle right
bundled
there.
up when it was like 20 degrees. keys.
I would pick him up and he's like,
freezing.
Wow.
That's all the long though,
goodness.
right? You know, I was just like, I'm gonna just put the work in. And it was rough. That month was rough.
That takes a lot.
Yes.
I think just that's the type of stuff that also helps you kind of get to where you need to go. Like say you're 6 trucks in and you're like, oh man, there's too much month at the end of the money. Where the hell where are we gonna do?
Oh,
well, it's definitely still. This still beats, being freezing, shivering.
Oh, for sure.
I got my shivering stories too.
Yes.
I think for us, whenever I started, oh man, it's actually been 10 years for me now, which is really crazy for me. But then again, I learned how to drive at like 13, the old Western way where,
Correct.
My pops is yelling at me like, switch to gear 2 to gear 3. If you don't do it, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we got to learn.
Yes.
So, but on top of that, those humble beginnings and those people that just like give you those vote of confidence, you just never forget it. That's
sure.
big. I think for us, it was, I got a couple high cube trailers from a couple farmers, and that's how I started my business with Amazon. I was just, and then I started using Amazon trailers, and Amazon didn't know how to track the trailers, so I was like, well, at this point, and hey, 10 years ago, statute of limitations. We're using the trailers. So at the same time, at the end of the day, they were developing a power only network, and then we were developing that power only network with them, and just we see opportunity, and you can't help yourself.
You really can't.
You just
That's the
can't
mark of an
help yourself.
entrepreneur.
Literally
Do you see a problem, and then does your mind organize a solution?
Exactly.
That's exactly what it is.
That's amazing. So
I didn't realize you have to go back to your story for that Costco. I didn't realize that left such an impression on you.
It did.
yeah.
So we're running the contract, right? And we're picking up this rock. Well, it was dark, and I was going off the guy's truck. I was using Josh's truck. He's like, hey, this quarry has that rock. I was like, all right, cool. Well, I've never been in that quarry, and I don't know what pile was what. He's like, this is it. And I was like, all right, it looks right, because we're not allowed to get out of the
Was
quarry.
it like belly dumps or something like that?
No, end dump.
End dump?
Uh-huh. And so I was like, all right. Well, we took it, and when we started dropping it, I said, dude, this is wrong. I said, this is way too big.
Yeah.
Way too big. And he's like, that's all right. Let's just drop it. And I was just, it was bugging me.
Which happens all the time.
It happens a lot with other companies.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
And bugging me. And I told her, and she's like, you need to call Lonnie, which was the guy that runs all the Costco's.
Yeah.
And so made the call, made it right. And he says, well, bring me this other rock. We'll hide this rock in. We'll figure it out. Just keep me bringing the rock.
Yeah.
Because I'm glad you called me and told me. And just, I didn't show up to this and not be happy.
There you go. There you go.
It really kind of saved that contract and just worked from there.
So there's the risk in mind, there's
Correct.
the risk. Okay,
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, it's like get in front of it and get out. If you get out in front of it instead of hiding something, you're showing your character and you're
That's
putting your
big.
integrity first.
That's right.
And it's hard to make those calls because you're like, but hey man, I know what it is. Like, how do we work through this?
Yeah.
And it obviously worked
correct.
out really well and embedded a lot of trust between the two of them. And then next thing you know, we were doing all the regional calls.
That's really what matters. I think at this point for us, when it comes to developing integrity and reputation of what we've been doing, that's what keeps people coming and asking us. Then of course for me, we're available 24/7. So at this point I have somebody I know I developed a little, office, or I say little, but just I developed a couple offices here throughout Texas, and it's mainly focused on specific I call it the Doberman mentality or the shark mentality, where I have a shark, somebody who's really just wanting to get things done, who almost can't say no, those type of people. And then I put supporting roles around those people, and then I start to say, hey, support this person, be able to then develop, and then here's your key performance indicators, so on and so on and so on. And I think that's what's big for me lately right now is I went from, and I'm sure you can attest to this, whenever I got 6-10 trucks. It's so much easier. It's so much easier to just say, I'm gonna get in the truck, man. I'm just gonna do this, man.
Yep.
Like that's big for me. I was always like that. So in general, not from the driving standpoint, I was like, I'm gonna make somebody else do it. But at the same time, but at the same time, it's the like I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this mentality. And then they ended up my best guys who've been here for years. I kept in the family, my best friends, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And they have that mentality. I got to keep everything. I got to know everything, right?
Yes.
Now for me, it's starting to be like, hey, let's develop some lines between. Let's build some structure to where I know who to go to for stuff. I know who to go to for if there's a quality assurance issue. I know who to go to if there's, I'm thinking corporate, which I never had a corporate position. So, transitioning from there to there is real big, and you'll see that by the time you get to, you're at 12 trucks in general, and you already have you already do. And I will say one thing, I can get into tangents all the time.
Yeah.
Excuse me,
I love
but
you.
yeah, I will say hiring drivers is nothing like hiring diesel mechanics.
No.
I think drivers are a dime a dozen whenever I look
Yes.
at a good diesel mechanic.
No, you're exactly right.
But we developed some great, structure in so that they know what they're supposed to be involved in. At times that situation I was telling you about had my operations manager going and doing billing and administration. It's
Yes.
like, eventually you're going to have to, we create some separation. It just depends on
Yeah.
when the right, time is, because everybody's business is different. For
Yeah,
me, it was
correct.
by the time I got to around 30, 40 trucks, I was like, I guess I can't do it all, but
Yeah.
You made it pretty far with them saying, okay, I need help.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
40 trucks in, you had to have been moving around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that process, by the time you get to, we were always stuck around. The first one was always stuck at 4. Always stuck at 4. Like it's either that, something would happen to one truck, and you're like, dang, like this sucks. I got to go back, or I got to keep my trucks. The bank. It doesn't matter what happens. You got 12 payments. No
Yep,
matter what. It
exactly.
doesn't matter. I don't care if
No,
you got
regardless
tariffs.
how you view it down.
Nothing. So then on top of that, I'm thinking about, by the time I get to 20 trucks, that's the next gap for me. That was the hardest part, because a tire still hurt you. At the end of the day, one truck being down for 2 weeks hurts you. But by the time you got to around between that, 25 to 27, slowly but surely, you're like, okay, I can still supplement, I can replace, and of course,
Correct.
you've been through, you're probably, I don't know, I'm not going to ask you your financing
Yeah,
terms,
yeah.
but in general, like, 48, 60 months is probably past, so you're probably
Yep.
seeing some trucks that are already being able to get paid off, and then,
Correct.
some people sell them. Me, I have end dumps too. I have belly dumps too. So I
Yeah.
just retire and keep them going. That's what my truck repair shop does for the most part.
Correct.
Just parts trucks together.
Or trucks that Yeah,
just keeps it
exactly.
going, man.
Or you keep an old spare.
That's
Like,
right,
gonna be
yeah.
the last
I don't
resort.
care if it's got a
that
black
one's gotta
hood.
Go, hook up to that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's got a black hood, a
Yeah.
white chassis. I do not
As long
care.
as that load
DOT's
gets
like
there.
that one.
Yes.
I'm coming for you.
And he better speak English.
Yeah,
That's for
exactly.
sure.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think that's what's been huge for us, just understanding that every level there's another devil ready for you.
For
So,
sure.
for me that's been, I guess from a personal standpoint, I've always been learning, always been involved, and just trying to understand more, learn more, be able to understand where I'm at, and realize that everybody has that value, especially with your stories. That shows more people who are already in that situation right now. They're at 6 trucks where you were, where
Correct,
I don't know if
correct.
you've had this. I had this walk, you go out, you look at your computer, you're like, everything's red when it should be green. So I'm gonna go take a walk like away from
Yep,
my computer.
uh-huh.
I just, I'm just talk to God for a bit, just be like, please, give me an answer.
Yep.
Some people are there right now.
Correct.
A lot of people are there
Correct.
right now.
It's like I forgot how the saying goes, but you have 2 trucks. Okay, well now you need 10 trucks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's part of
Yeah.
it. It's part of it. Because I feel like there's certain, when you get to so many trucks, it comes almost like where it's not benefiting you.
Yeah.
You feel like you either get more or you get rid of.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
And you got to make that adjustment on what you want to do and how far you want to take it.
Exactly, and of course, I always treat my trucks as my kids. Thank God, I don't.
Oh.
God hasn't blessed me with kids just yet. But at this point, I understand the family aspect too is big. I want to highlight that, and when you're developing your trucking company, with especially end dump, belly dump, those guys are up before 4 in the morning.
Uh-huh.
And I just know what that does, like from a
Yes.
family perspective. Like the not only do you have to have a great entrepreneur mindset, you got to work hard.
You do.
Your family has to endure.
Yeah, the
a
first
lot.
year I wasn't really around for Harley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, our son's 2.5 now.
Oh, wow.
We
Yeah.
That's
know
good.
all about that
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I wasn't around very much
Yeah.
that first year. And
It's-
she had to move pretty much just not long after she got pregnant. We moved to San Marcos and she had to do it by herself.
No,
Wow.
no, that was after he was born.
Oh, after he was born, yeah.
It was the week after he was born. We had to move.
Yeah, she had to move.
ourselves.
And she had to move herself because I had to stay working.
Wow. Yeah. See,
Yeah.
it's like, hey,
Yeah.
that truck's got to move,
It
and it's
does.
like, yeah, I definitely, I've missed a lot of birthdays, missed a lot. I mean, Christmas was like what I would do. I would do this in 2017, 2020 area. Basically, I would tell everybody, hey, come to my house. Like, I'll make it really nice, etc. I'll make sure that everybody's got a gift, and like I'll pay everybody, their Christmas,
Yeah.
$50, whatever. Because I was that guy. I didn't give money bonuses.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're all working. So, but we're working, but like I'm gonna feed you and
Yeah,
everything.
correct,
and then
correct.
on Thanksgiving, the same thing. Like, hey, I would say, hey, let's all do this, but my employees will laugh and be like, that bastard. He was just like, I was like, we're family, you know, all that stuff, and we're very close based off of like a harsh knit environment. Nobody will. I'm sure you can say this, or you've said this before. Nobody's been in this type of business to understand.
Yes.
You know, and so when I put people through the ringer like that, it's really special. The people that stay, like what they become.
For sure.
Who they become. They become resilient, and then on top of that, there's a different type of loyalty that me personally, I didn't appreciate enough, to be honest.
Correct.
By the time I was growing the company, etc. Now, of course, I'll go talk to my director of operations. He's been with me for 6 years. Been my best friend for 12. I'm like, man, just thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he'll just be like, man, put your emotions back in your pocket or something, But at the same time, I'm like, it is very hard.
It is.
To be away from your family, to go and run trucking, and to try and be successful in an environment. Yeah, sure, we have a capitalistic society, but the world does not want you to be successful here.
No, it really don't. It's not set up that way.
It's not set up that way.
Yeah,
It's
and
not.
some people, I think a lot of the industry or outside eyes looking in,
Yes.
will be like, oh, he's doing great.
Yeah.
But they never actually look at what you had to do to get there.
That's
They don't really, and it's just, even people you hire,
Yeah.
they're like, well, you can afford it, or you can do that.
I mean,
And it's
yeah,
like,
hands.
and
Yeah,
I'm
the
like,
hands are
come
out,
on, it's
brother.
like,
Hands are
you're
out.
viewing this all wrong.
Yeah.
But it's just those people that are always going to be in those positions because they're not going to really want to develop any further.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, it's all like, I feel like, how do I put it? Like a majority of the time with those people, how was I going to word it? It split my brain. It's like they'll say these things, but yet never understand it because they'll never have it or put forward to it on what they want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So to them, it's easier to say, oh, he's had it made.
Of course.
Or like,
Oh
he's
yeah,
not worried
I
about
read
it, right?
YouTube comments.
Yeah,
they're there. I get
stuff
it.
like that. It's
Black
just,
and white thinking.
yeah, and it's like,
The assumptions.
and it's like I tell everyone, I said, dude, you can do the same thing I do. You have the same amount of hours I do in the day.
Yeah,
I said,
yeah.
I'll even tell you how to do it, and you go do it, and let me know how it works out for you.
That's right.
I said, I'll tell you everything, even
Yeah.
when things that I learned myself that no one told me, I
Yeah.
will give you that info.
Yes,
And
yes.
if you want it, go for
It's
it.
a great-
Let me know how it works out for you.
Yeah.
I've had people tell me the same thing, and what I tell them is that there's this 4-hour. I was like 18, 19, and so I'd work at the night. I was living the COVID life 2 years before COVID happened. I was in my house just dispatching like stuff for my customers, and I had maybe just a few trucks, and I was also dispatching for my brother's company. And at that point, it was just work out at 3 a.m. Be up at 8 p.m., work out at 3 a.m., and then in my garage, so I wouldn't leave my house,
Yeah.
and then I would go to sleep around 10 a.m. And that was just probably for a good 2 years before, and that was about 2 years before COVID happened. So
Yeah.
whenever COVID happened, I was like, hey,
This is the
Already
norm.
doing
Yeah,
it.
ready.
yeah, this is the norm.
So now,
Uh-huh.
like, understanding what, resonating with what you say in regards to the people, I think that there's just not enough resources for trucking company owners, because the people who you are wanting to relate with are your, who have been in careers only.
Correct.
They don't have those chains. I call them chains because in all reality, you sign that name on the dotted line, you got to carry that weight as a weight vest for
You do.
literally that term. You
Yep,
know,
you do.
And it's on your name. No, they're going to come for you, and your house. So at the
Yep.
same time, having that is something that has weighed me down for in the past. It's made me scared, knocked me every way but loose, right?
Correct.
But then you look at people who are higher, and it's like, they don't really have the time for you. So it's like, who is there for us?
No, yeah, you're exactly right.
Everybody's like either he's either making money, or he's doing all these things, or the famous one that I had whenever I was going, you need balance.
Oh.
You need
God.
balance.
Balance.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I wish I could have some balance
Yeah,
right now,
exactly.
but I already hardened my heart a long time ago.
Yes,
You know?
yes.
Balance isn't possible when you're in a growth phase.
Yes.
Balance ultimately sustains it, but
Precisely.
balance is not what grows you.
That resonates with me very
Yes.
much, because I personally didn't know that. Me personally, it was I always tell people, you have to thrive in a fast-paced environment, right? You have to thrive in that, right? But for me, I never understood, and I understood it recently, which is why I'm trying to make some changes around here.
Yeah.
But it's basically, I thrive in a fast-paced environment. I want you to thrive in a fast-paced environment. But I want us to work to where we can get to a paced environment.
Correct.
I don't want us to live up here all the time,
Correct.
you know? Because trucking company owners, or I don't know if this is you as well, I live in fight or flight a lot.
Oh yeah.
That's it for me. Like, it's like, is this
She'll
it?
tell you.
Yeah.
We literally had that conversation on the way over here.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it's alarming how we can have all these comparisons, and then just everybody just deals with it differently. You know,
Correct.
you know, people have to compensate for it. People have stressors, de-stressors, whatever you name it. We can outline a distress, but in all reality, it's anxiety based on the fear of losing.
Yep.
And that's what I built.
Sounds like me talking to you.
I know. That
I always
sounds like
say
her.
I'm like your spiritual advisor, and I know he gets tired of it, but he has to hear it, because if you don't have that someone like grounding you
Yes.
and taking it down a notch. I have so much to say on culture and teams. So
Yeah.
we circle back around there, but
That's good. Yeah, I mean, I definitely wish we had it early. I had
Me
to learn
too.
the hard way.
Because
Shoot.
it's hard to step out of that.
Yes.
It's very
yes.
difficult, right? And then when you hire people, I've noticed when I hire people, I have the same standard for them.
Yeah.
Which should not be the case.
Yes.
Which should not be the case.
I wanted everyone to. So here's what I said: you're not going to work harder than me.
No,
That's what I'm going to
yep,
tell you right
exactly.
now. So you can try,
Yep.
and then so in general, I just had a bunch of guys running and sprinting behind.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, my change is more recent for me. I had a lot of internal thinking, and it's been, there's strength and vulnerability is what I'm trying to figure out,
Correct.
right? So for me, the change was, I don't need you to be me. I need you to be the best you,
Yeah.
and I need you to start reading
That's
you a
so
little
true.
bit.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's like, I have a couple of drivers, and I have a couple of facility managers, and these facility managers are up in Dallas, and one of them was trying to, I just spoke to him recently. I said that exact thing because he was just like, I'm just frustrated. I'm not talking the way that you guys are talking. And I said, well, there's a difference for me. There's practical intelligence, there's social intelligence, and there's emotional intelligence. I'm pretty sure there's others, but these are the three I'm focusing on right now. And let me be honest, you have great social and emotional intelligence. So leverage that, because I don't have it like you do.
Yeah, correct.
Practical intelligence is where I boast. I say, I have all three, but at the same time, I don't. Not
Yeah,
in comparison to other guys who can listen, because I'm not patient.
Correct.
So for him, I'm trying to leverage that, and I'm saying, hey, do this your way. I'm gonna trust you to try this,
Yeah.
and you're probably gonna fail, and then I'm gonna
Correct.
help you,
Correct.
Instead, before, what I would usually say is, do it my way all the time, every time, because my way is the right way. Hey, I'm saying this because that's just how it is.
That's why she's laughing at me, because I was that
So-
way. I was like, I don't care, just do it my way. My way's gonna work. I know
Yeah.
it's gonna work.
we recently
does.
had this
It does.
conversation, and it's almost like a speaking into the identity of your team members and making sure the right people are in the right places at the right time. I know that phrase gets thrown around a lot,
Yeah.
but it's amazing when you sit down and have a conversation, like, what do you love about your job?
Yeah.
What lights you on fire? It's that flow state of people, right? If they're moving their flow state and they're operating in a space where they're bringing their strengths, but they have an opportunity to stretch their weaknesses
Y'all are so complimentary.
and
That's
bring
awesome.
it together.
Yeah.
Oh, we are.
Yeah.
We can be like oil and water.
Oh, everyone says that. They're like, you're like the perfect, team
Yeah,
that
that's
got
a good,
together.
good
that-
compliment.
It's,
Yeah.
it's funny because I get frustrated with him because he's just like, go, go, go. And I'm
Yeah.
like, hold on a second. You have some things to think about as you're going.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then with me, I think, you can speak to this, but sometimes I think you think I'm a little bit too like spiritual and out there and a little woo sometimes.
No, not necessarily, but I'm just like, babe, this is like common sense, realistic.
Oh yeah, he says that a lot.
Here's what my dad used to say, and this is why I laugh. It's simple. I don't
Yeah.
understand why it's so simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you.
Uh-huh.
I get you.
Yeah, he'll say, a lot of times about people, he's like, it's common sense, I don't understand. I'm like, okay, well, your brain goes at 300 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're shooting out like a little bit here, but you're already 3 minutes into the conversation in your own brain, and now you just drop in,
Yeah.
and you think people live in your brain.
And I'm waiting for people to
sometimes.
catch up. I'm like, why are
Yeah.
you not catching up? It's literally
It's
right.
understandable.
I've had myself as a translator. I'm a Jonathan translator
Yeah.
a lot of times.
That's good. That's
It
good.
is.
And it's funny because people start coming to me being like, hey, I need to talk about John about this, but I don't know how to say it, and they
Yeah.
work through me, and so that's a fun little bonus role.
It
I
is.
have.
It's really weird because I've never viewed myself as an intimidating individual just to talk to.
Yeah.
And with employees, I notice they all go to her.
Yeah.
And I want to talk to John about this, but I
Yeah.
feel like I don't know how to go about it.
Yeah, it's
You know?
understandable.
I don't. It's one thing.
It's those guns, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get better, like trying to talk to them, and I'm, I don't know, just how they communicate differently.
I want to highlight though, because I don't want to feel one-sided. Because John, what you have is something as well that I had to learn. Because I was more like you, KatLynne, in general, with how I process things in my philosophy. I had to learn how to be in the truck, how to survive in the trucking world, right? And that's something that you can't learn in a book.
No.
So you have that, and that's what that's what I want to highlight. And I'm talking about when somebody's going to get in your face and say, "Hey, you can't have this job. I'm going to take this job." You're going to have to say, "Hey, buddy, what's going on?" Like you get in people's face, and on top of that, unprofessionalism or just a go-getter attitude. Whenever my thinking already finishes, I'm like, literally, there is no way possible. John's gonna be like, let's get up and go to work and let's figure this out.
Yeah.
Right? That's that. I had to learn that. That was learned for me. Because in general, and I attest that to my brother as well. My brother Alfred, he does the same exact thing. He's always ready to go, and then we complement each other a lot. He's really risk averse with his trucking company.
Yep.
And I'm more of just like visionary systems architect, and then I'll talk to anybody. I love talking to people.
Correct.
So I think like, that you need that complement. And of course with trucking company owners that are running solo, and then you have, just your family taking care of things at home, etc. That's where it's hard. I mean, one thing my dad said is in general, and I take a lot of wisdom from him because that's where the hard trucking mindset came. I'm talking 1970s, old Wild West type trucking, right? And you got to get the family involved. That was his answer. Get the family involved, right? And so if you can, that's one thing that I would tell people. Get the family involved. I get it. Everybody. That's why it's so. If you go to these trucking conferences, you'll be like, yeah, this is my son. He's my manager of my trucking company. This is my daughter. She's my administrator of the trucking company. It's pretty common to keep it there because you need the trust.
You do.
And you can only have that with family. And that's what's. Or I got to pay somebody more than myself to have that kind of trust.
Correct.
And so there's only.
And even then, there's a question. Right?
Yeah.
It's always in the back of the head.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always like that with me in general. You never know with someone as an individual.
No, exactly.
It's like a guy that we have now that's I actually helped him out of a bind.
Yeah.
He was working for this other guy, and I used to hire them all the time to do work. Well, things kind of went sideways.
Yeah.
Well, they tried to go do the same thing I did. All right, and it didn't work out that way, and I'm helped them out of the bind.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard, right? Because you trust those people at
Of
some
course.
point. But anything can go sideways with anybody.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a risk you have to take to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But then you also got to know what you're capable of and what they're capable of.
That's right.
It's like.
So it's calculated risk.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
And we balance each other out in that too. I would say like one of my biggest strengths is looking at a person, and if I spend, any amount of time with them, I can tell you like, see their potential. I can see it before they do. And so like kind of bringing it to them. But I also, I love, getting someone who's raw, who has that attitude, right? They've got I'm going to succeed no matter what it takes. And they have that hustle. They have that mindset and driver.
Yeah.
Might they have everything that you need right then in that position? No, oftentimes they don't. And it's good that they don't in a lot of ways. And then, if you can work with them, actually, our director of ops on the trucking side, her name's Lauren. She said this to me, and when she started, I'm like, "Where are you going with this, Lauren?" She's like, "You're the kind of person you kind of grind us down." So I'm like, "Hold on, what?" She's like, "No. Like you grind us down, and you're like, look at what we've got on the table. You don't need that. Keep that. That's an awesome skill set here. Adjust this, do this." And she's like, you put the pieces back together and help build us up to a better version of ourselves.
That's really good.
And that, like doing that, the loyalty that you have in your team,
Yeah.
it's a different level.
Yes.
It is.
And we have that, on the trucking side, on the diesel side, when you talk about family on the diesel repair side, everyone's connected in some way.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
They become, and I know
It
it's a
does.
cliche. They say, oh, like they're not your family, etc. But it's like,
They are.
It literally.
They They are.
Like with trucking, it's like, yeah, if we were doing payroll processing or software, yeah, they're not your
That's
family.
different.
Yeah,
But
correct.
this stuff is like, y'all are in the literal trenches together.
Yes, exactly.
It sucks. You
Yeah.
know? You're getting woken up as a team at 2 a.m. because
Yeah.
of this
Correct.
trucking issue. Yeah, that builds some bonds.
It
Oh,
does.
yeah, the
It definitely does.
The
It
level
definitely
of trust.
does.
I
Yeah,
mean, like
yeah.
she's picking up my son from school right now.
That's
you know
what I'm
I
saying,
mean? Like
you know?
it's that level of
Yes,
trust.
it
Our
is.
Yeah.
director of ops on their repair side, they're husband and wife. But,
Oh, that's cool.
So like
Yeah.
there's interconnectedness everywhere, and then her dad's one of
Her
our
dad's one
master
of our
mechanics.
Yeah.
So it really is
And
family.
he's
at
actually
that
the one that
point.
started with me.
He did. We'll
from-
have
Really?
to get into that.
Yeah.
But even our director of ops, you know, on the not to say even, he's equally as amazing. But Trent, he would do anything for anybody at any time.
That's
you know,
awesome.
even when he senses that I'm stressed. Like
Yeah.
even today, he walks in my office, he's like,
Yeah.
and he's like, you're a great leader, and
Yeah.
like just I know he means it, and just the way that we build each other up is unmatched. Like
That's
you
good.
can't buy that, you can't manufacture it. You
Yeah.
know, it's just that's the secret sauce.
Correct. It really
It's
is.
a perfect balance of like implementation and planning.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Correct.
that's what trucking is not, especially at the very beginning.
No.
It's just reactiveness,
Mm-hmm.
react. You know, coolant. You have a whole plan for the day, and then there's a coolant hose that just pops.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
you know, we might have to leave halfway through this.
Yes.
That's basically how it worked, and I
It
think
does.
just. For me, it was trying to create systems to stop that. You know, create. You know, one thing that I'm sure that if you've done a bunch of interviews with logistics people in general, they always say, "I know the life. I know the life. It's
Yep.
it's 24/7. I know the life."
Yeah.
And at this point, I kind of try to make a method to that madness. Where right now, my holistic thought is, I want you to work your ass off here.
Correct.
I want you to be a grinder. I want you to be a hustler, but I don't want you to feel guilty whenever you put the phone down.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that is hard.
That's a very
That
hard
is
line.
impossible.
Yeah.
Like that was impossible to think for me. And now at this point, it's a process, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's not going to happen overnight.
No.
But of course, for me, especially when I was at those sizes, 12, 20 trucks, 15, you name it, I want to change immediately. If we're going to do something, we got to do it in 2
No.
days, right now. You
Yeah,
know,
so
all the
yes,
time.
uh-huh.
You know, I don't want to beat around the bush. You better, if you're going to make the change, make the change. If not, I'm going to go back to my way.
Yep.
You know, and having to transition, it just depends on how,
Yeah.
like your scale, like when I talk to you, I already know, like 50 trucks, you're not gonna have no problem. You know, like that's
Yeah.
just your scale of how y'all are thinking, which is awesome. It's a blessing. And then, you know, I'm a firm believer in general of if you are already thinking in that way, think of you having it already as if you have it now, and then you're gonna work
Yeah.
up to that. You know, it's like almost
Absolutely.
expected. Whenever I was
correct.
buying, I wasn't worried about the other 40 trucks that I had. I was just really happy about the 2 that I just got.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
You just
Yeah.
keep moving.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
absolutely do.
Yeah,
And to your point, the new levels, new devils, it's like every level is a learning phase. Like
Yeah.
you are there to learn something, but you need to take that to the next thing.
Correct.
You need to learn everything to go to the next.
Yeah.
And something we do well, you know, he's the visionary, and sometimes I have to stick close to him because something random will come out of his mouth, and I know I'm like, oh, he's going to build on that. Something's going to happen with what he
Correct.
just said.
I do.
And I'm that person that's like, okay. And I ask him this a lot, and he gets frustrated sometimes. It's funny, but I'm like, what is point B? Because his point B is always shifting. So it's an
Yeah.
impossible question. But right now, right in this moment, what's your point B? And I start planning all of this.
Yes.
And we saw in the very beginning, you're like, even you know, when he first got payroll system, he's like, we don't need that. Why do we need that? And
Yeah.
I'm like, trust
I
me,
know.
we
I was
need
like,
that.
why? I was like,
Yeah.
you want me to pay that just to pay people?
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
do it already for free.
And I was just like, oh my gosh.
It's
like,
simple.
You
Yeah.
know, it's one of those things, but I'm like building the system and processes
Yeah.
as we go. And
Yeah.
so when you get there, it's funny, even with our CRM, right?
Yeah.
We custom built a CRM with developers, and now,
Oh, nice.
going
Yeah.
out to sell that too. And it's just a phenomenal system.
Yeah.
Guys, I want to give us a 5-minute break.
Okay.
I want to know. So we got a lot into the emotional back end side of
Uh-huh.
everything. I really do want us to get into the technical side.
Okay.
So let's have a 5-minute break.
Okay.
Okay.
You guys get your ears stretched, and we'll be right back.
All right.
Cool.
I know you probably have some things you need to.
No, I'm good.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. No.